Hey, well, good morning and welcome to Kingsway Christian Church. Would you stand as we begin our worship service this morning?
We're so excited you chose to worship with us this morning. There's a little card in your bulletin. It's a little white square type piece of paper. Normally I have one with me, but I forgot it. And if you would take that out and fill that out and either take it underneath the yellow banner back here to our connections booth or drop it in the offering plate, it's a way for us to get connected to you or for us to get you better connected here to Kingsway. So I tell you, like, whoo, back here to the banner. I totally got distracted. ADD. Squirrel! All right. Hey, we've got some great things going on. We have a new sermon series launching today. We're going to worship God in this incredible environment. How incredible is it on the stage? It's exciting to see what God is going to do. Would you turn to those around you and greet them? Tell them how excited you are to see them. Shake a hand. Give a smile. Excited to see what God's going to do.
the opportunity to come together this morning and worship our God in joy and freedom and hope that only He offers. Continue to give Him the glory, put Him at the center of our lives, the center of our worship. This is why we are here, to worship Him as one body, as His church. Water you turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you. There's none like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. There's none like you. 'Cause our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome power. Our God, our God. To the darkness He shines. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. There's none like you. 'Cause our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome power. Our God, sing it again. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome power. Our God, our God. If our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? What could stand against? Sing it out now. Our God is greater. Yes, our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Sing it again. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Our Father, Creator, you hold our hearts together. There's no one higher than you. Redeemer, Defender, our great and mighty Savior. There's no one higher than you. You are always with us, gracious to forgive us. By your power we've been set free. Lord, we stand amazed in your presence, astounded by your mercy and love. Our hands are lifted high in surrender. Your grace for me is always enough. There is no one higher than our God. There is no one greater than you. Let my life forever praise the glory of your name. There is no one higher than you. Majestic in wonder, you reign with love forever. There's no one higher than you. Your beauty, your splendor, your glory knows no measure. There's no one higher than you. You are always with us, gracious to forgive us. By your power we've been set free. Lord, we stand amazed in your presence, astounded by your mercy and love. Our hands are lifted high in surrender. Your grace for me is always enough. There is no one higher than our God. There is no one greater than you. Let my life forever praise the glory of your name. There is no one higher than you. There is no one higher, no one greater, no one like our God. There is none more able, Christ our Savior, great and glorious. There is no one higher, no one greater, no one like our God. There is none more able, Christ our Savior, great and glorious. There is no one higher, no one greater, no one like our God. There is none more able, Christ our Savior, great and glorious. There is no one higher, no one greater, no one like our God. There is none more able, Christ our Savior, great and glorious. There is no one higher, no one greater, no one like our God. There is none more able, Christ our Savior, great and glorious. There is no one higher, no one greater, no one like our God. There is none more able, Christ our Savior, great and glorious. There is no one higher, no one greater, no one like our God. There is none more able, Christ our Savior, great and glorious. There we stand amazed in your presence, astounded by your mercy and love. Our hands are lifted get high and surrender. Grace for me is always enough. There is no one higher than our God. There is no one greater than you. So let my life forever praise the glory of your name. There is no one higher than you. There is no one higher than you. Lord, we give you the glory. You are the praise. This next song we're going to sing it. It's really simple, but I want to give you an escape clause, because I don't want to trick you into singing it, because it's simple, but the commitment is so much different, so much more. And this is a commitment that we take on in word and deed. It's a little different, but I believe that this is the commitment that is at the center of our church. It's at the center of this new sermon series. It's the start and it's the end. So you don't have to sing it. You can think about it. But those of you who choose to, let's sing this together as the church. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. The world behind me, cross before me. The world behind me, the cross before me. The world behind me, the cross before me. The world behind me, the cross before me. No turning back, no turning back. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. No turning back, no turning back. Sing that first verse again. I have decided to follow Jesus. 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 No turning back. No turning back, no turning back, no turning back. One more time. No turning back, no turning back. Lord, would you continue to call us into the full life that you offer? Would you show us what that commitment means to follow you wherever you lead, forsaking the world, putting the cross at the center of our destination, Lord. And in the times when we are alone, we have no one to go with us. We say we still will follow where you lead. Lord, I know the things we're going to be talking about over this sermon series, and it's a little scary. It's a little scary trusting you and following you, because you lead into a great life. You lead into the full life. But I know it often leaves the comforts of this world, the comforts that we're used to. Lord, in you there is hope, there is freedom, and there is joy. And we thank you for that, Lord. Call us onward. May we listen to you now. Open up our eyes and our ears and our minds to understand what you have to say to us this morning. You guys can have a seat.
Maybe. All right. Go ahead, get things started this morning. Who's ready to listen to the Word of God? Everybody ready? Awesome. Hey, just in case, a few just house things we need to take care of. If you were missing just a class last couple weeks over the summer, and you have kids, and you're wondering, okay, why in the world are there no kids in the service right now? There are normally 1,000 kids in here. It's because we've gone to a full children's service. Through our whole service, we are actually offering our Kids Blitz programming and Tiny Tots programming. So now you can actually drop your kids off at the beginning of service, and we'll have a little check-in system. And they have programming designed just for their age group the entire time. And it's something that our children's minister John has been working very hard with his volunteers to put this together, and he's excited about this fall and some of the things that are coming up. So if you're sitting in here and your kid's next to you and they're like, Mom, is that us? Yes. Yes, it is.
38 kids back there right now.
There are 38 kids back there right now. That's awesome. That's crazy. Some of us need to figure out how that works. That's a joke. Hey, I was just over here listening and praying and worshiping with you guys, and I love being in here and just feeling, it's just an incredible environment to just come in here this morning. The stage is just set up just in such a warm way, and I can feel the Spirit of God moving. And I can just tell you, knowing the preparation that's gone into this series, knowing what we're going to discuss over the next 4 weeks, knowing what you're going to be challenged with even today, I can just feel this like shadow that is trying to fall over some hearts in here, including my own, that I doubt. I doubt a little bit that maybe God is capable of doing what I know He is. And sometimes I see that doubt in this way, that sometimes I feel like my heart is far from where it needs to be. And this morning, I just want to pray before we do anything. I just want to pray a prayer over you and for myself, that our hearts would be where it needs to be this morning. That it would be aligned with Christ. That we would be open to hear His word preached, to hear His word read. That we would be open to what that means and what that will change in our life. If we would just give God the opportunity to get greater, that our lives would be changed forever. Let me pray for you. Let me pray for myself. And let's just pray that God begins to align our hearts, gets us ready for this series, for this fall, for what He's going to do in each one of your lives, in your families, in your marriages, with your kids, in your schools, in those quiet places that no one else is there. What God is going to do in those moments, I believe in it. Let me pray for you. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I ask you right now a special blessing, Lord, a special hedge that would come into this room right now. All the obstacles, all the stresses, all the issues with money or relationships, all the issues with health, all the things that are weighing, the bitterness, the unforgiveness, Lord, the issues of football teams, Lord, the games that are going to be played today, Lord, the weather, the crops, Lord, the car repairs, whatever there are, Lord, the things that have distracted our hearts, that have pulled us from where we need to be, Lord, focus our hearts right now. Lord, bring us to a place where we hear your word preached. We are ready. We are so incredibly ready to hear what you are to say today. And Lord, we give you this time. We ask you to move. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Let me read for you a verse out of John chapter 14, verse 12. And this is just going to set up this entire series. And this is where this series gets its power. And when I read this verse, it may take a moment to sit in, but let me just tell you, this verse, when you read it, it should be scary. It should be scary. Because in some ways, when I read this verse, you're going to say, okay, it's just a verse. But this is a red letter verse. This is something Jesus said. And when he said it, he wasn't being like figurative. He was being truthful. He was being wholly, completely honest with us. And when you read it, and when I read it, something happens. Two things. One, I go, man, does my life line up with that? And then two, do I say the church that I'm in, does it line up with that? So when I read this, in just a couple seconds, think about that. Does my life line up with this verse? Does the church I'm in line up with this verse? Look at this, chapter 14, verse 12. I tell you the truth. Anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. Healing the sick, raising the dead, creating food for thousands of people. Will do what I have been doing, and he will even do greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. Let me read that one more time. Just sink this in for a second. Jesus is telling us, I tell you the truth, anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing, and he will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. This is the truth that launches this whole series. And I have to be honest with you, this is a series that we have taken from a church called Elevation. It's a series that was written by a man named Stephen Furtick. And it is a powerful, powerful series. Incredible series. And the story that we're going to follow today is from the book of 1 Kings. And the parallels that it has to what Jesus was talking about, and the parallels that it draws to our own life, and the calling that God has in each of our lives, including yours, is just crazy. So we're going to be following just a few verses out of 1 Kings, but it has so much symbolism, so much potential to change your life. The greater things that Jesus is talking about, they're not mystical things out there. They are something that you and I are called to be a part of. You and I are called to do. So let's turn to 1 Kings, and let's look at the story of Elijah calling Elisha. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 19 through 21. Here's those verses. Listen very closely. I'll read them all in completion, and then we'll talk about them. So Elijah went from Damascus and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Now Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak around him. Then Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, he said, and then I will come with you. Go back, Elijah replied. What have I done to you? So Elisha left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the plowing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. And then he set out to follow Elijah and became his attendant. When I read that to you, it may not make a complete sense because you don't have the whole picture. Let me break it down for you in just 30 seconds. You ready? Elijah was an incredible man of God, the first guy. Incredible prophet for God. Had done incredible things. In fact, in just a few chapters earlier, he had this incredible, basically all-out brawl with the god of Baal, with the false god of Baal. And if you've read that story, he called down fire and he licked the fire up. God burnt up this offering, and he basically kicked the tar, all right, out of this false god, Baal. Now, the queen of Israel is a wicked queen, and her name is Jezebel. Jezebel is not very happy that her God has gotten defeated, so she sends out a death threat to Elijah. And what we just found here is Elijah's been running for his life. He's depressed, he's scared. He's not exactly sure what he's supposed to do. And while he's on the run, guess what God does? He starts telling him about this guy named Elisha. Starts talking about how this guy named Elisha is going to be the guy to take over Elijah's job. And so the part we just read is where Elijah just literally walks upon Elisha. And Elisha's doing a job that maybe some of you in here have done, not many probably have, but he's driving a plow with oxen. Now, it's very hard to give a picture of what this looks like, but just imagine driving a dump truck full of trash. So a trash dump truck, all right? And imagine just trying to hang on for dear life on a pair of broken skis.
All right? That's about what it would be like to plow with oxen. Because these 2 oxen are probably the size of a dump truck. All right? They're roughly a couple thousand pounds. And then he's got them by the reins, right? And then the plow is not like a plow like you and I think of. It's not like this nice piece of awesome sharp metal. Like, it's 2 pieces of trunk tree kind of shoved together at an angle, so it kind of makes a rut. And the reason why there's 12 pair is because the 12 would go along in a line, and by the 12th pair, maybe they'd have made a rut, if that makes sense. So they would all be in a line like this, and by the 12th pair, he's on the 12th pair. That means he's got 11 other dump trucks worth of oxen in front of him, dumping all that stuff in his way. And if you've ever hauled hay like I did, there's all this kind of stuff flying in your face because you're at the back of the line. And that's where Elisha's at. He's out there in that 12th pair, plowing the field. Now, the first thing we see in the first verse is Elijah just comes up and throws his coat over. Oh, isn't that so sweet? Right? When you hear that, I'm sure you think, okay, what does that mean? Well, in the old times, during that time, this was symbolism. This was Elijah taking Elisha under his wing. This was him calling him to be his, basically, intern, his attendant. He's saying this: I want you to come and follow me. I want you to come and be with me, always. And the thing is, Elisha didn't need it explained. Do you realize that? In the verse there, he didn't need it explained. It's not like all of a sudden Elijah needed to explain to him what this meant. All of a sudden Elisha's like, all right, let me go kiss my mom and daddy. I'll be back. Right? I'll be back. First invitation that I see Elisha getting, and this is the first thing that I want to draw the parallelism between Elijah and you and me. Because Elisha was given a higher call, an invitation for a higher call. Now, when I say that, a lot of you out here, I'm sure, immediately are like, that's awesome, Trevor. A higher calling. That's so great. What does that have to do with my life? A higher calling. See, when I hear a higher calling, what I think you guys most of the time will jump to is, okay, I'm a clerk at a grocery store, so the higher calling that God is going to lay on my life is to become a preacher. Right? And if you're not careful, you'll think that that's what I'm going to say today. That a higher calling may actually be something that you have to change what you're doing and do something else. See, when I say the word greater, immediately, I don't know why, it's in my head too, but I hear the word better. I don't hear the word greater. I hear the word better. Right? Is that true? Anybody else hear that? Like when I say the word greater, do you immediately like, yeah, I want better? It's not the same thing. See, when you hear the word better, what you're saying is when you're in a tough marriage, that means you need to go find a better husband or a better wife, right? When the calling on your life is not to go get a better husband or wife, it's to be a greater wife or husband. When you have this sense of better in your life, you think, I need to be a better person, so I'm going to stop whatever this is and I'm going to start doing this. No, it's right where you're at. Right where you're at, God is just calling you to stand up and be a greater person. Whatever part of your life is in disarray, whatever part of your life is hurting, a lot of times what we try to do is just throw it out. When God sometimes is just calling us to be greater, to have a greater sense of calling. I like to talk about the way that I feel like God put this on my life, and I know it's very easy sometimes to feel like, okay, Trevor's a pastor, he's up on stage, this is what he does for a living, so of course he's felt that tension. Let me just tell you, when I was 19 years old, and I was living a life that I know I shouldn't, and I know that to you, it's like, what was that, 3 years ago? Like, no. 10 years ago, all right? So much longer. It's like forever ago. But I remember this tension. See, the feeling that Elijah has is that mundaneness? You ever feel that mundaneness? Like you couldn't describe your job like you were plowing oxen, but you could describe your job like you were plowing with oxen? Like you get up each day and you just feel like you're strapping yourself to something that smells horrible and isn't really fun and just seems to drag you through a bunch of dirt? You ever feel like some days you wake up and that the whole life just seems to be mundane, the same thing? I mean, think about it. If you're plowing with oxen, what do? You draw straight lines with the big cows. And that's what you do. They ask you, what are you going to do tomorrow? And you go, I'm going to go draw straight lines with the big cows. What are you going to do? I'm going to hold these 2 pieces of rope. I'm going to draw a straight line. 2 cows. I remember, I know they're not cows. When somebody get crazy in here, they're different than cows. They're not that city-ish. I'm just saying, they're bigger versions of, anyway. They're oxen, all right? Don't get crazy up in here, but I'm telling you, when you think about the mundaneness of your life, I remember at 19 years old, I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden I realized, because high school, right? High school, you think the world is just awesome, and like, you're going to be able to see all the movies you could possibly want once you get out of high school. And you're going to be able to do all the things that you think you're going to be able to do. And that money is going to fall from trees. And that you will be able to drive wherever you want. And you will get the car that you want, right? And you remember these dreams, these pipe dreams that you had, illusions that you had in high school? And then very quickly, when you get out of high school, what happens? You get bills, right? You get bills. Or someone crushes your dream. Right? Your manager says, yeah, I know you'd like to go to that, but you need to work. You need to do this. You need to do that. Life comes crashing in. I remember at 19, I started to feel this sense of being trapped. You remember that? That feeling? Maybe some of you are still there right now. This feeling that maybe this is all life is. The monotony of the mundane. You just feel like this is all life is. There is nothing in this verse, there is nothing you can find in Scripture that says Elisha deserved to be chosen. There's nothing in the Scriptures that we can find. And when I say higher calling, there's an invitation for you to have a higher calling. So many of you, you've already counted yourself out. You've already said, this series is not for me. I'm not worried about getting greater places. I'm just worried about like getting into heaven. I'm not worried about like doing anything great. I'm just worried about surviving. And so many of you, you've already said, you know what, this series is not for me. And you've counted this invitation as something you don't want to be a part of. And let me tell you, Christ did not die on a cross. God did not give his one and only Son so that you could live a mundane, horribly monotonous life. He didn't. He didn't die for that. Some of you are like, well, yeah, but my life may not change after this series. And this is what I want to tell you. Listen to me. Listen. Look. God may not call you to a greater place, but he may call you to be greater right where you're at. Can you imagine if you went into work with a greater sense of purpose, a greater sense of passion, a greater desire to see what God is going to do? Can you imagine if you went to your work feeling the calling on your life, that God has greater things planned for you? So here's where we go from here. Okay, Trevor, that's all and awesome, and I feel that. And I understand why sometimes it's even hard to track, because it's very general, right? It's so general. You're like, that's awesome, Trevor, that's a great truth, but it's so general. Let's get some more specific. I'll give you something today that's gonna challenge you. It's gonna test you. The next set of verses, in verses 20 and 21, this is what Elisha does after he's received this blanket. And when that blanket is placed over Elisha, just think of it like this. It's the Holy Spirit inside of us. God has called us. He's given us that awesome blessing. But look at what it says here in verse 20. Look at this. Chapter 1. Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah and left him with the kid. Can I go kiss my father and mother goodbye? He said, then I will come with you. And he said, go back. Elijah said, what have I done to you? Now, here's the reason. It's not like, what have I done to you? Don't read it like that. When he says, what have I done to you, it's him being a little bit sarcastic. Like, yeah, you better go do it right now. Because if you don't, guess where we're going? Nowhere close to here, right? I threw my cloak over you, and I'm not staying with the oxen. I'm not staying around your house. Yeah, you better go kiss your mom and daddy goodbye, because we're not staying here anymore. Does that make sense? So when you read that now, there's a different understanding. So then, what does Elisha do? So Elijah left him and went back, and he took the yoke of oxen and he slaughtered them. Okay, these are big animals. Has anybody ever cleaned, like, don't pretend like you killed like a 12-pointer, okay? Just the big deer that you got, okay? Everybody sat in the woods and tried to clean them, right? Anybody done that? Not drug them back to the house, like too far to drag them back, and you're trying to clean them, right? And then you get about halfway through and you're like, this knife is horrible, right? And you're trying to sharpen it. Can you imagine taking a 1,000-pound animal and slaughtering it? Take a little time. And he burned the plowing equipment. It's a cook to me. Okay, pause for a second. Why a plow? Let me think about that for a second. Why the plow? They not have a tree? They not have some firewood? They not have something else to burn with? Why is he using the plows? That makes no sense. Think of this just logically, okay? Okay, here's logically. You ready? You own a company, all right? You own a company. It's an awesome company. God calls you to leave that company and to do something else. And you burn the company to the ground. Your neighbors are going to go, what are you doing? Why would you burn that? Why would you burn that to the ground? Why would you throw that away? There's such a beautiful illustration here because here's what the illustration is. Elijah knows something. There's no coming back. There's no coming back. There's no need for that plowing equipment. And in fact, he also knows something about himself that you and I can identify with really quick. You ready? If he leaves that plowing equipment in his shed, he just leaves it at the house, and he's out with Elijah, and things get hard, guess what he starts thinking about? You know, I still got that plowing equipment. If I just went home right now, if I just went home, I could get that plowing, you know what? I could just go back to that life. I could just go back to where it was. See, when he chooses to burn the equipment, it wasn't because he was being an idiot. All right? It wasn't because he was so rushed that he just said, you know what, this wood will work. In fact, I would say that wood probably was so dried out and rotted, it's probably like this. You know, I don't even know if it lasted very long. You know, it could have been so weathered and torn up. But he knew that he needed to cut ties completely with his old life. Let me tell you this. If you want God to do greater things and to be greater in your life, it's an invitation to deeper surrender. It's an invitation to deeper surrender. See, when we read that John chapter 14, verse 12 verse, it wasn't saying that you would do greater things. It's saying that God would do greater things through you. And when you attach yourself to the world, to other things, you're not letting God do what he only can do. See, and Elisha knew that if he was going to go with Elijah, he needed to be all in. You know, this guy's got death threats against his life. He knows there's tons of crazy things going to go on, and he knows he's going to have hardly any say, pretty much no say in what they do or where they go. And he doesn't know if he's ever going to be back again. And you know what? He doesn't want to go back. So he burns the plow. You know, there's only a couple times in my life that I can remember even somewhat doing this, but I can remember one time in particular. told you this before, but I'm going to tell you again because it's those moments where God sets a standard, a flag, and he says, this is it. My family and I moved from Oregon to Arizona, and I told you this. We went to this high school, this new high school, and I remember there was 3 high schools in our city, okay? And they were all 4,000 to 5,000 kids, all right? 3 high schools in a city, you figure that out, okay? That's a lot of students. And we were going to actually move into a school district that had the best baseball team. That's what my parents decided. We were going to move into the school district that had the best baseball team. And you know why? Because I was really good at baseball. And they wanted me to not have to feel the pain of moving umpteen number of hours and miles from Oregon, and they wanted me to be able to find the best baseball team immediately. And I remember my focus in Oregon was solely on baseball. I had some players that I played with that played for the Diamondbacks. I had some guys that I know that played on all over the country in D1 schools from my Little League All-Star team in a little town of Westland, Oregon. And I was convinced I was going to be one of them too. I was convinced. And when we moved into that house, I was so excited. I remember I played basketball before baseball. And I broke my ankle in basketball season. Now, I know you may be a little distant from this, but guess what happens when you get hurt? You get forgotten. The baseball coach stopped calling. He wasn't as interested to talk to me or to see what my skills were because I wasn't healthy. And so the naive me wasn't patient enough to wait, and so I pretended like I was healthy before I was. And I tried to throw and pitch, and I tore a ligament in my elbow. And within 6 months, 9 months of moving there, baseball was over for me. It was done. They told me Tommy John surgery would take 2 years, and I might be able to play my senior year if everything went perfect. And I chose basketball over baseball, and I never played again. And I remember sitting in my room the days and weeks after that injury happened, and I remember my dad and my mom were so concerned because they had done all this work to make this happen. And I tell you this because this has happened in your life. I was holding so tightly onto this thing. I wanted this thing so bad, and I thought it was what I wanted. I mean, guys, having 12 pair of oxen and having a steady job in this time, this was not just like some bum job. I know I made fun of it, and I said, man, this would be a tough job. But listen, he probably worked for somebody really rich, and he probably had a steady, great job that he could have a family, he could have stability and security, and he was good. He had it made. It wasn't like he was being pulled away from something that he was just living this horrible life. He was in a good place. And I remember sitting in my room thinking about baseball and all the dreams that were wrapped up in it. You have things in your life that are like this. You have something in your life that you know sometimes you're like, the world behind me except for football. You know, like, the world behind me except for my Dish Network. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you do this. I do this. The world behind me except for my disc golf bag and all the things that I do with it. You guys don't even know what disc golf is, but it's an awesome game. The world behind me except for all my clothes and my accessories. Right? That's not me, that's someone else. We do this. And I remember sitting in my room and I had this moment of clarity where all of a sudden that thing was off the table. It was burned. Not by my match. It was done, fried up. Gone. And all of a sudden the thing that had distracted me so much, my eyes were open. And I tell you the truth. When you burn something, when you surrender deeply to something, someone, clarity is the thing that comes in. When you remove the things that have taken your attention, the things that have stolen your glance, stolen your time, stolen the time that you needed to give it to God, there is nothing but clarity that comes in. I was called into ministry just a few years later. I don't know if I would have gone if I had a D1 scholarship. I can say that. I don't think I would have gone. I know I wouldn't have gone. I would have been like, no, I want to go play baseball. And I tell you this, I see that so clearly now. But it took years for that to wear off. I mean, it took years. And the crazy thing is, guess what? We don't know, I can tell you, we don't know how long exactly it took for Elisha to get mentioned again in Scripture, but the estimate is between 2 and 7 years before we hear anything else about Elisha. He burned that stuff, guys. You think it's crazy, but I mean, can you imagine just going 2 years? You're like, all right, I'm here. It's an invitation to deeper surrender if you want God to do greater things. You have to be willing to cut the ties. You have to be willing to let go of the world. Basically, what Elisha did is he uncloned the world and cloned to Elijah. What God is calling us to do is uncling to the world and cling to the person of Jesus. It's a deeper call to surrender. My favorite part is the last thing. And that's the thing where it just says, Elisha just went. He went with him. Look at the end of verse 21. This is what it says. And he sent him out to follow Elijah and became his attendant. That's it. There's no application process, no sitting down and figuring out exactly what the job would be. You know, there's no like 5-year plan so he knows where they're going. There's no like, hey, this is the plan, we're going to go here and we're going to go there. You know, there's no like, hey, here's the set agenda, here's what I'm going to pay you. You know, here's what the house that you're going to live in is going to look like. You know, here's the transportation we're going to take. You're going to get this great company car. There's none of that. There's none of that in there. See, because the greater calling, the greater things, and this is the last one, it's an invitation to greater things. All right? And don't get confused here, because sometimes preachers say the greater things are a better car, a better boat, a better house. All right? Sometimes that's the greater things. Careful. Sometimes the greater things are we can't have great things. And when you have Jesus, you just need to live a life of poverty. All right? Here's what I'll tell you. You want to know what the greatest things are? When you follow a person, not a plan. The greater things start when you follow a person, not a plan. When Elisha started out, he didn't have all the great things in his mind, but he knew he was following a man that had done great things. And I'll tell you right now, if you want to be invited into doing greater things, it starts with you following a man that has done incredible things, and his name is Jesus. Incredible things. When Elisha sent out, he didn't need all the things filled in the blanks. You know why? Elijah's story spoke for itself. He knew his life was going to be crazy. He knew things were going to be nuts, but he also knew he was going on an adventure. Some of you in here, if Joe Montana showed up at your front door, he's like, dude, we're gonna go somewhere. You'd be like, done, Joe, where are we going? You wouldn't think about it, right? You might even forget to ask your wife if you're leaving. She's like, no, Joe's here, I'm leaving. Some of you in here, President Obama showed up at your door, you'd run, but some of you in here would follow him. Right? You would. Don't laugh. That's mean. You would. He's the commander-in-chief. And some of you in here that are smiling and laughing, you'd still. You would. I mean, let me tell you, if Jesus showed up at your door and he was inviting you to come with him, how many questions would you have before you left? The only one brave enough in your house would probably be your wife that would ask a question for you, because she's trying to pack your bag. She's trying to figure out what you need. That's the only question, right? You wouldn't ask questions. read John chapter 14, verse 12, I know this. When he said, you will do greater things than even I did, he is saying this. When you allow me to work in your life, the fingertips of the kingdom go out into this world like no one person could. The very Holy Spirit of God himself is dwelling in you, and when we leave this place, we fully surrender to the person of Jesus. We go out into this world and we do greater things through his power than Jesus ever could. This sermon has one thing for you to do this week. And in fact, we've come up with a really creative way for you to be able to do this. Because when you leave today, you walk out this door. Oh, there they are. You're gonna get one of these. It's just a little book of matches, and it says, "Burn the plows." It says, "Burn the plows." Your plow may be a relationship that you need to get out of. Like God has been calling you to get out of it. It is toxic. It is not what you need to do. You need to step away from it. Listen to me. The plow is not a bad thing. Some of you in here, you have good things keeping you from the greater things that God is calling you to. Some of you in here, you're going to get called to just step up in your house. And you need to burn the man you used to be. And you need to step up for God and let him do greater things. Some of you in here need to let go of unforgiveness and start to forgive. You need to let go of the bitterness and the greed that has held on to your heart for revenge. And you just forgive. There is something in here that you are being called to burn, and I promise you, when this matchbook hits your hand as you leave, don't just pretend like that was just coincidence. That this was something. Remember when we lined our hearts up at the beginning? This is why I knew it was going to be hard. It's because you don't just get to listen to a sermon today and walk out that door and pretend like this matchbook didn't hit your hand, and that God is calling you. That cloak hits your shoulders this morning like a cold bucket of water, and it's rushing down your heart right now, and he is calling you to a greater life. Don't negate the invitation. Surrender completely to the person of Jesus and follow him to greater things. Burn plows. Let me pray for you. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, as we launch off into fall, Lord, this incredible series is just, it's hitting me, and it's challenging me. And Lord, I can feel the ways that, Lord, this matchbook needs to hit some things in my life. And Lord, I know that you have called me to greater things. Lord, each person in this room, they need to hear you speak loudly right now. They need to hear you speak boldly in their life, so that they may make the decision to follow you wholly and completely, and to burn the things that have gotten in the way, to cut their ties, to chase after the person of Jesus. Lord, in your name we pray. Amen. We are going to enter into a time of communion and response. Here at Kingsway, we do this in a special way. We call it our response time. And really why we call it that is because we know God speaks. He is not quiet. Sometimes it's in a whisper. Sometimes it's a bold statement of the heart. Sometimes it's twitching. You just feel that you can feel the Spirit move. And we want you to be able to respond to that. Some of you in here, you know that you're going to have a tough thing ahead of you this week. You're going to have to light something on fire that you have held dear, that you have spent time with. And it's going to be hard to leave it behind. Some of you in here, life has just felt numb and mediocre. Mediocre. You want the greater things, and you're not even sure what God is calling you to burn yet, but you know God has got a hold of your heart, and you need to come pray. Some of you here, there's some things that are going on in your life that you need to change. We're going to have a couple elders up here and in the back. We'd love to pray with you. While that time is going on, we also have communion up here and in the back. And as you feel like you've prepared your heart to take the body of Christ that was broken, the blood that was spilled, as you feel like you've prepared your heart to take that, you can come up and take that and go back to your seat. Let's respond to God this morning.
May we live, may we lead what you will do, and what you'd like to do through us and through us as a church. Lord, you show us the great clarity that comes to you, and sometimes it's maybe the destiny, it's the clarity that shows us. And so as we leave this place, next step is, would you reveal that or what the good that are keeping us from the greater life? Lord, we continue to be, even now, as may you take these offerings in your name we pray. Also, the day at Pam Baker's house. So if you have questions, we'll get you connected up.
And if you're a man for men, Wednesday Night Brothers, that's our men's ministry. This week, I'm praying for this one to kind of jump in and see what burger or a hot dog.
Man, you should come out.
Sorry. But you'll eat hot. We do have good food also, Java House meals.
Chili dogs.
Chili dogs. Chili cheese dogs. If this is your first time meal as a gift to you, if this is your first time, we often hang out. We'll be right back in this room. We'll eat. It's $4 a person. So feel free to eat. So thank you so much. And glory, stay in the Lord. We'll see you later.
Trevor just said, yeah, my son.
I was trying to like I didn't know but I was talking about the sales had moved something, but I didn't know my I was trying to
Okay. Yeah, we'll work it out.
Sorry.
Hey, you missed good food. How are you
Farmers of Afghanistan.
Yeah,
Even Christina.
Fruit Association.
I like that,
By the him was playing whatever he was playing. Goodness, that was loud.
I knew it was loud. I had to be right here.
but I'm so busy in the cover.